Welcome into the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. I was just telling Greg before we started rolling, I'm glad that he recommended a trip to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame while I was in Cleveland, because that was about the only thing worth seeing in the Cleveland area. It was a tough weekend, Greg, for the Titans. A lot of teams got punked this weekend, though, across the league. Looked like a lot of lopsided results.
Well, at least the Browns didn't put up 70 on the Titans, D.
Yeah, that's if you can take solace that you're not the Broncos this weekend, and that you're not the Chicago Bears, who seem to be a bit of a different kind of a mess. But let's start with the local professional football team, Greg. Tough to learn anything about the offense when they simply can't get into drives.
You have to try really hard to gain 94 total yards of offense, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but that's really hard to do. And they average 2.1 yards per play. And I know I'm just reciting stats, but that's almost hard to do in today's NFL. And look, I think it's in some ways the same issue as it was a year ago. And I don't know what they can do to fix it in season. But when your offensive line is below average by NFL standards, particularly when you're playing one of the better D lines in the league, it can be very difficult just to execute even the most basic things on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we saw that. And I think, as evident anywhere as the drive that they had to end the first half, where they're helping Andre Dillard the whole way down the field. They get inside of 20, and ultimately they ask him to win one-on-one on that final play. After there's 13 seconds left on the clock, he pushes Myles Garrett pushes Dillard right into Ryan Tannehill. And instead of getting the opportunity at least 3 before the half and the ball to start the second half, they ultimately come away from that drive taking a sack to have the clock run out. And I think it was just, evident that was going to be how the rest of the day was going to go.
Look, obviously, I'm sure people in Nashville are really unhappy with Dillard, and he has clearly played poorly. That's what the tape shows. There's no other way around it. As I've said to you many times, I'm not an O-line coach. I've talked to many over the years. I've watched a lot of tape. He has one particular issue. He has a few, but one in particular that, to me, seems as if it's coachable. And again, this is no knock on a coach. I'm not a coach. But he is almost always late and wide with his hands in pass protection. And so what happens is the pass rusher, and in this case, arguably the best edge pass rusher in the league, in Garrett, what that does is it allows the pass rusher to make first contact into your chest. And that's really hard to react to, because if he's in your chest, he's just pushing you back. And the thing about Dillard is he's not naturally strong. So if someone gets in his chest, he can't really anchor and recover that way. So just so people can understand, I think it's a good enough visual. You tell me, Buck, when I say he's late and wide with his hands. Is that clear visually in your mind?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that he brings up, Greg. He doesn't talk often. We kind of had to corner him in the locker room after this game to make sure that we got some comments from him. And he continually brings up his hand placement. In fact, he told us that Myles Garrett was offering him constructive criticism after the fact about his hand placement and his sets specifically. So he knows what the issue is. It just doesn't seem like he is in real time able to correct it.
And that's why I don't want to say, because it's very possible he's being coached really well and he just isn't doing it. I don't know the answer to that because I'm not there. But somewhere along the line within games, okay, this is all I have because I'm not at practice and nor am I in the meetings. But he needs to learn how to strike and control with his hands and not allow pass rushers into his body where his lack of anchor strength is exacerbated. I mean, that's one of his main problems in pass pro. It's arguably his main problem. Look, the reason he was a first round pick is he has light feet. and he's athletic with the position movement requirements coming relatively easy to him. He's got really light feet,
Yeah.
but he's got this technique issue with his hands, and he does lack strength. And I've talked to some scouts who, are offensive line experts, and, over the years, and, some would argue, this comes from scouts, so, I'm not the one saying this. Some would argue that he lacks competitive toughness. Now, that you have to really be in the business and know him and do all those things that I don't do, to feel that way, but that's what I've heard. So, the problem is, and he's been a problem through 3 games, clearly. But then you do see a couple of plays here and there, Buck, where he does it really well, and it just makes me think he can do it, but beyond that, I don't have the answer.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem like they right now do either. So, Greg, we've talked about Dillon Radunz before, and you mentioned in the pre-draft process that you thought he would be better suited as an interior offensive lineman coming out of the draft process as opposed to a tackle. He's been playing as long as you think I've characterized that correctly, as far as your assessment.
I think overall Radunz plays too upright and too stiff, and that negatively impacts both his strength and power and his lateral movement. I think he's an upright player, and that's a hard thing to fix. And I think it's one reason why he struggles on contact. So when now playing guard, when a defensive tackle gets into him, he struggles to maintain control because he's upright and stiff. So I don't know. Again, I'm not an O-line coach in the sense of, what exactly he should be doing. I just wonder if that particular issue, particularly being upright, is fixable. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. And I think that, at least for the audience, that's the kind of mode that they're in 3 weeks into the season, right? Because Peter Skoronski played left tackle in college. His status for this game is still TBD. He didn't practice today, coming off the appendectomy. So if he ends up missing another game, that would obviously not be ideal for them, because I think he might be their best offensive lineman right now.
Yeah, and the issue they're going to have, unless Dillard, they feel that he should be benched, and I think the only answer to that, I assume, would be Skoronski at left tackle. Although, did they not just bring up someone from the practice squad?
His name's Justin Murray.
Yeah, and he's played in the league. I can't. I'm not going to pretend I know. I can't. I know he started in this league and played games, but I'm not going to pretend I know his traits and attributes. So I'm not.
He was the backup left tackle in the preseason prior to Radunz being medically cleared to come back to the roster.
So I don't know if they think he can play left tackle better than Dillard, but if they don't think that and they feel like, okay, Skoronski has to now go to left tackle, then I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know how they feel about Radunz, but the problem you face, one way or the other, is you're going to have to start helping your offensive line, and boy, does that limit what you can do in your pass game. And then you get really stuck.
Yeah, and that was exactly how I would describe them on Sunday. Stuck, because not only was Dillard getting worked over pretty well by Myles Garrett, and that the right side of the Browns defense, Zadarius Smith was a problem for Chris Hubbard too, and it makes it look so much.
Yeah, I mean, there were third down plays in this game. There was here. I'll give you 2 right now. Because I make a note of these things so we can discuss them, because I know that fans of teams remember plays really well. Because they're passionately involved in their team. But if you go to 3rd and 13 on the Titans' first possession of the third quarter, they actually doubled Garrett with Okonkwo and Wiley. They were in what we call 0-2 personnel, meaning no back on the field and 2 tight ends and 3 wide receivers. So they doubled them with both tight ends. So you know what that meant? They only sent 3 wide receivers into routes on 3rd and 13, and the Browns ended up playing cover 2 invert. It's just cover 2, but it's a little different. But so the point is, they had 7 in coverage playing 3 receivers.
Yeah.
Now, it would happen to be a play where Tannehill, off second reaction movement, had Burks open down the field but made an inaccurate throw. I'm sure you remember that play.
Yeah.
But then, same situation, 3rd and 12 early in the fourth quarter, they again went 0-2 personnel, And again, they only sent three wide receivers into routes. The Browns again played cover two. You know, this time they actually did not. They let Dillard block Garrett one-on-one, and Garrett got a second reaction sack. But so this is the issue you face when you can't protect. Is now you need a back, a tight end, two tight ends in this case because of the use of personnel. That you're stuck. You can only send three receivers out, and if the other team is just rushing four because they know they can get home with four, then it's 7 in coverage, Buck, versus 3 receivers. Football is a numbers game. Those numbers don't work for your pass game.
Yeah, it'll be another tough test for them with Cincinnati coming into Nashville this weekend. They saw, I'm sure on Monday Night Football, as everybody did, the Bengals defense get after Stafford, bring him down 6 times in that game. And the Joe Burrow situation, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before we talk about Joe Burrow and the offense, Greg.
No. I mean, they're going to face some good pass rushers again. Hendrickson's a really good edge pass rusher. I mean, he's not Garrett, but few are. But he's still really good. And they have good players. I love what they do schematically. I love Lou Anarumo. I think I think people now know who he is because they were in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. But I think they do really good things. I love their 2 linebackers, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, and they obviously feel they're critically important to what they do because they signed both to meaningful contracts. So this is a really tough defense to play against. So again, how are they going to handle this? And look, I'm not in a position, I don't feel comfortable sitting here saying, well, Derrick Henry's lost this, lost that. I don't know the answer to that. But all I know is there's not a lot of room to run, So, that's a hard question to answer. I'm sure some fans think, oh, Derrick Henry's lost it. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, he's not getting really past the first level of the defense very often.
Yeah, no, it's impossible. It's impossible to evaluate anything about them when they're both getting hit behind the line of scrimmage that are early and often throughout the course of the game. They can't get into and they can't get into anything meaningful.
No, you can't. I mean, you're behind the sticks way too often. And look, other than the 2, long plays in this game, they didn't have anything.
Yeah. Of the 45 offensive plays, some of the numbers coming out of this game, Greg, were wild. Of the 45 plays that they ran, 33 went for 2 yards or less. It was a really, really difficult watch, and I'm sure a difficult experience for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously had more, for 33 yards on 4th and 5. That was a really well-designed play. Maybe that was the only play. I think I was thinking of a different game, but
no, they really that was it because
that was it. Yeah, I was thinking of the week before.
Yeah,
so that was really the only play. And when you think about that one play for 33 yards and the fact that they gained 94 total yards, they only gained 61 yards on the rest of their plays.
It puts things in when your only scoring drive loses 9 yards, you're in for a tough day.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, we'll see how, I'm a big believer in coaches and coaching. Coaches are not stupid. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, as you know, Buck. I sit and watch tape, and coaches, they know more than I do, and they're with the team every day. They're trying to figure all this out. Mike Vrabel, that this is not an easy week for the coaches or for the players. We'll see how it all plays out. It's 3 games. Fortunately, they've won 1 of them, so it's not like the season's over. But they'll have to figure out how they can kind of deal with the fact that the offensive line is still a concern. And it's, it's hard. Look, when you are really good on your O-line and your D-line, like the Philadelphia Eagles, for instance, okay, they have the best combination of O-line, D-line in the league. You can be in every game. Your quarterback Jalen Hurts has not played great football this year, okay? But the Eagles can dominate games even with the quarterback not playing at the same level that he played last year because their O-line and D-line just dominate games.
Right. It's a problem that they're going to have to solve in real time, and be interesting to see how they go about doing it. Cincinnati is
anyway. Burrow, I know people want to hear about Burrow. He's obviously a marquee player. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know that's what people want to hear. So I don't know if you have a specific question or you just want me to talk about Burrow.
Well, Burrow, I think What beyond the calf strain, the limitations that the calf is providing him, are you seeing from him, Greg? Because I know that obviously plays a big role in their issues, but it does seem like their offense is a little clunky, seems like a fair word to describe them through the first 3 games.
Oh, it plays the role because you have to understand Burrow is a great quarterback. That's not the point. But Burrow is not a naturally power thrower. You know, he just can't sit and throw the ball with arm the way, you know, a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Matthew Stafford or Justin Herbert. You know, Burrow's greatness stems from other things. And like I said, he's at his best. He's truly a great player. So right now, so just before I say right now, so what has to happen with Burrow is his throwing motion has to work from the ground up. Theoretically, all quarterbacks do, but some can get away with it not. You know, his has to. So when he can't work from the ground up, which he can't now, okay, because of that calf, it really limits his ability to make throws. I remember doing Burrow coming out of LSU, okay, and I loved every single thing about him. And I remember sitting with an offensive coordinator at the combine, and we had a great conversation about the quarterbacks in that draft class and talking about Burrow, and we both agreed that this kid was special in every way. The only thing he lacked was a power arm. Now, he's been able, obviously, you know, people can debate the arm strength issue all day long, and you'll get different points of view. But now that's even made worse by the fact that he can't work from the ground up. So he can't really use his legs and his core when he throws the ball. And that's critical for him, you know, more so than other quarterbacks. So that is an issue. Now, if people saw the game Monday night, they also know that T. Higgins had a really bad game.
Yeah.
You know, is that likely to happen again? You know, you'd assume not. But their pass game is somewhat limited. They're probably going to feel that they have to rely a little more on Joe Mixon, as they did in that game. Now, the Titans still have a really good defense, so we'll see how that goes. But the Titans are in a situation now where their defense has to truly be dominant to allow them to be competitive in games.
Well, Greg, can I ask you about the Titans defense quickly? Because Christian Fulton is, I mean, you know, I don't know how healthy he is, right? He missed
Right.
the second game with a hamstring injury, and that's been kind of the story of his career. He's had these soft tissue injuries that have limited him, but he just seems a bit out of sorts. And some of the chunk plays that the Titans passing defense continues to give up have been pretty confusing. They were getting home against the Browns.
Yeah.
Watson obviously is able to. He's
I
very
thought,
strong, obviously, so evading some pressure there. But
yeah.
they really struggled in this game.
I thought, though, I mean, again, I'm just being honest based on tape. And, you know, I thought that Watson made, and he hasn't done this since he's been around, but he did it in this game.
Yeah.
I thought he made a couple of just ridiculously good throws, good throws. I mean, the 25-yarder to Cooper, where it was a stutter fade. And I thought Fulton had excellent coverage, but Watson, his ball placement was so good, and Fulton just didn't get his head around, but he was right there. It wasn't as if he was beat. You know, and that happened a number of times with Watson throws. I mean, the Peoples-Jones 29-yarder on the first third quarter possession, you know, he ran the slot fade versus McCreary. I thought McCreary had really good coverage. It was just another big time throw. You know, I thought Watson made some really, really good throws in this game. I don't think on those particular plays that I mentioned that the corners were just beaten badly, or, you know, oh my God, they just got killed, you know. So again, not being a coach, I don't know the technique they teach and what a coach will say on those specific plays, but, you know, sometimes you got to tip your hat. Those were just brilliant throws against quality coverage.
Yeah. Unfortunate for Tennessee that Watson decided to get right in that particular game.
And they just don't have, you know, the problem when your offense can't score is every play is magnified, Buck. You know that. Every play. So unless your defense is literally throwing a shutout, you know, it's every play becomes magnified, and then it's a problem.
Yeah, that's been the story of the last season and 3 games so far. So on the NFL Matchup Show, of course, ESPN Plus, you can set your DVRs for it on Sunday morning. It's a great resource for you to understand the landscape of the NFL heading into another week of football. I have to assume that Miami at the Bills is the game that you guys, one of the games that you guys are going to be breaking down. I don't know who has that as an assignment.
Well,
I
we're
assume it's on the
doing,
show.
I decided this week because of the nature of that game to do a full segment on that game. So yes, I mean, that is when the Dolphins put up, college number 70 points and over 700 yards of offense, against another NFL team, you sort of have to kind of deal with that. So
Greg, the rushing attack for Miami is the thing that blows my mind. Almost 350 yards, almost 350 yards on the ground in that game. The way that they creatively find ways to get their backs involved. I mean, you've talked about Mike McDaniel before. He's obviously very well regarded in the NFL, and I think people forget that he was a big part of their running game, specifically in San Francisco before Miami.
Yeah,
It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and obviously they had huge numbers in the run game, but when you play them, I'm not saying you don't care about the run game, but I think you have to start with the pass game and then count on you need your linebackers to be able to play the run really well, because you have to play split safety. You can't play single. Again, nothing's 100%. I don't want people to think that you do the same thing on every play, because no one does that. But
right.
You need to be able to play with split safety. You need your linebackers to be able to play the run, and you need your front four to be able to get pressure somewhere along the line. And you have to be able to take away the first window, and then your front four to be able to then get pressure. Otherwise, it's too clean for Tua.
Yeah, and that's a good, too clean is exactly the way that I would describe it. It's going to be a fun weekend of football. We'll see what happens with the Titans, and certainly we'll be back next Wednesday to break it all down. Greg, appreciate the time as always, my friend.
Thanks, Buck. Appreciate it.